Yeah, so I just finished changing the oil and switched to the synthetic, the Joe Gibbs DT40 synthetic 5W40. Takes 6 liters with the INA pan, and to change it when you change the oil filter as well. So yeah, the next thing is going to put the new strut upper bearings in and change the discs and the pads because they're worn. You can see here it's a little bit hard to see, but there's a ridge that's developed. So I'm going to grind the ridge off for about a 6-inch area on one side so I can pull one of the pads out and then move the caliper over and pull the other pad out, and then we're going to pull the strut out as well. So that's what I'm up to now. Well, I got it just right on. The rotors, when new, are 20, and you're supposed to replace them at 18, and these were 18. Pads were down 2.5 millimeters each from the original thickness, so there they are, worn, and then there they are new. We just stack them up against each other and you can see pads are fairly worn. Might have done one more track day on the pads, but obviously you change the pads when you change the rotors. So the rotors are done, and we'll swap in the new rotors. And because I have slight clearancing problems with my aftermarket Willwood calipers that my Tech 53 buddy in Montreal made, those big puck, you see how big those pucks are, that's custom stuff. So I had to machine these things down to 10.0. So they're normally 10.1 out of the box, and so these are machined down to 10.0, and they have lots of thermal expansion room. So I'll throw the new ones in now. Oh, I have my Lang caliper piston press to get the calipers back, the pucks back to where they should be without having to resort to C-clamps and other nasties. So looking forward to using that now. Alright, so got the new discs in with the new pads, and now I'm going to pull the struts out and put the new upper perch in. Well, so it's about 3/16 lower, and it closes the gaps of their front and rear. They're both 3/4 of an inch, and so I'm happy with the way the new upper strut perches work. The other thing is, maybe I had it wrong last time. I thought I measured it right, but the alignment to get 2.5 degrees negative, I'm full in on both top units now, and last time this one was off a ways and I was complaining about it, but now we've got 2.5 negative on both front corners and the stock 1.3s in the rear. So I'm going to take it for a test drive now, see how she goes. Oh, one thing I needed to do is clean the slicks, so a bit of a heat gun and a scraper. You go through and get all the snakes and stuff off, and then I finish it with the cheese grater. So it takes about 10 minutes per tire, and then they're clean and ready to go for the track. Ah, happiness is clean tires. Yeah, it took less time than I thought. Some of them were, the front ones get hotter and they get more shit stuck onto them than the rear, so rears were pretty quick. So yeah, I'm going to put them in the tire bags and throw them in the car and go to the track in the morning. Okay, so I finished my track time. Didn't record any video this time because I was with an instructor and I wanted to focus on learning and didn't want all the distraction of all the tech setup and all that crap. So I downloaded some data to share with you guys. So this is my fuel flow And up here you can see that I'm running almost 110 pounds of fuel per hour above the 7,000 RPM. And that translates into, I think, really strong horsepower numbers. So if you take a brake specific fuel consumption of around 0.43 to 0.45, that puts me above 240 horsepower. So, one thing that's interesting is I changed the oil filter and put synthetic oil in for the first time, and the engine got quieter with the full synthetic. And not only did it get quieter, but it actually produces a little bit more power. So I guess it's a slipperier oil. One thing I noticed, because I'm running 5 W40 instead of 10 W50, that my minimum oil pressure when it's hot drops below 20 psi down to the 15 to 20 range. So I've actually had to change my warning buzzer, because it goes off when I take my foot off the throttle on the track after a few hot laps. So anyway, it's great to see this fuel table doing what it's doing. I'm going to show you some laps, and this is cornering G's. And so remember, I'm running Hoosier A7 slicks, so they are basically an autocross, not a road course tire, but on a very light car like a Mark 1 VW. They're perfect in many ways. The only thing I find is they pick up a lot of marbles and crap from the track quite quickly, because the tires get hot quickly and everything seems to stick to them. So you drive around the track, you're kind of like a vacuum cleaner and cleaning all the shit off the track, and unfortunately then you got these tires that have to then be cleaned afterwards. But I'm seeing an average of around 1.3 Gs in the corners, which is, for a street car, this is in a range that I would expect. And to go from that to braking acceleration, you see that the car, when it's on full throttle and it's peaking in its torque band, it's around a half a G of acceleration in second gear and less than third gear, but it's pretty stout accelerating. And then again on the braking, you can exceed a G of braking. I haven't really gotten to the point of threshold braking with the car. I'm a little bit of a neophyte on the track, and pushing past 1 to 1.2 Gs, you start to break the tires loose. I haven't done that yet. The car actually seems to have come down aggressively. Comparing it to the Porsche Cayman S, it seems to brake more aggressively than that car. And I don't have ABS or any of the safety things that a modern car would have. So something to consider, by the way, is that you're not just straight line accelerating or cornering, but you're also doing combinations of accelerating and cornering together. So this is a math channel, and unfortunately I can't do square roots, but you take the vector of braking and the vector of or accelerating and cornering, and you sum them together by taking the square of each of them, adding them together, and then taking the square root of the total. So I can take the square of them, but I can't take the square root. So just take this and take the square root of these numbers. So you look and you say, all right, you're seeing a lot of net Gs on the tires, around 1.5, 1.6, which is translating into 1.2 to 1.3 Gs of typical tire G-forces when you take the square root of these numbers. And you can see there's quite a few up at 2.0, which take the square root of that, and you're at 1.4. So again, within expected ranges. I was with my instructor on the track, and I wasn't really going for it. I was trying to listen to him and trying to understand what he was saying. And so just show you some lap time. So back before I became a member of the Vancouver Island Motorsport Circuit, I was with a bunch of guys, and we were having a supervised, what they call Taste of Circuit track day. And by just looking at the video, in-camera footage, it's around a 1:37 lap time. So when I finally got out there on my own in the car and kind of, did my goofy laps, I was in the 133.59 range. And when I took the GTI out, after I rebuilt the engine, because I had the problem, not rebuilding the whole engine, but basically fixing the problem with the damper and the cam pulley and the pressure plate and everything vibrating apart. So I fixed all that stuff up and got out there in October, which for the Pacific Northwest is getting to the very, very end of track season. It's just cold, the track's cold, and probably like 50-degree Fahrenheit temperatures. So I was able to lap in the 132, mid 132s. Came back again 3 weeks ago, and just testing the car out, not trying to push it too hard. Got the same lap time in the mid 132s. And then this week with the instructor, and I was not driving the correct line, and I was not really doing a great job. And he gave me a ton of pointers, and I was going to go back on the track again and test out, what I'd learned, but I had a problem with the clutch pedal, which I'll explain. So I just called it a day, but I was already over a second faster. So, I've talked to other people at the track, and I kind of have a pretty good idea of what I think this car is capable of. So I practiced with a better line, deeper braking, better shifting strategy, and just experience and knowledge. And I should shave a couple seconds easily off of my current time and get into the upper 120s. And to put that into perspective, Kees Nierop, which is a Porsche, sorry, I spelled Porsche wrong here, Porsche Factory Race Driver, won 24 hours of Sebring for Porsche. World famous driver, has a car in the Stuttgart Museum with Porsche. Anyway, his best time with the Cayman S is a 128 on the OEM tires, performance tires, and on slicks he was able to do a 124. So this is sort of like God driving the car, not making any mistakes, and everything perfect. So it shows you what someone like me that would be buzzing around the track, not knowing what he's doing a 133, shaving 9 seconds off of me by putting slicks on, but 5 seconds off of me with the same tires I was running. I'm sure I could get down to the lower 130s with the Cayman with practice, but he'd still be several seconds ahead of me just because he knows what the fuck he's doing. And so, what's the very, very, very best you can do on this course? And there's two different cars, both very lightweight, the Radical SR3 and the Formula 1000 cars, very light cars. It's a tight, fairly slow track, and those cars dominate, so a Porsche GT3 can't even get close. A GT4 can get into the 116s, but the bigger, heavier cars struggle because it's, as I said, it's tight. And there's a lot of cornering and a lot of braking, and you just don't have a chance to use the throttle and use your horsepower as much as on other tracks. So 115 is these guys are running 114, high 114s basically. So gives you an idea, but everyone says to me braking 130 is very respectable for any street car, and to do it on a Mark 1 Golf, normally aspirated, is not to be underrated. It would be an honorable thing for us VW guys. So anyway, just the last thing about the clutch pedal, I changed to the aftermarket clutch cable attachment hardware that attaches the clutch cable to the lever on the 020 transmission, but I hadn't changed the upper rubber bushing. And that rubber bushing failed during my track day this week, causing the clutch cable to be loose. I was able to just temporarily tighten it, but because there's no bushing there, the cable is running against the aluminum on the upper transmission bracket, and it just doesn't feel very smooth. Obviously, it's sort of grinding away and it's wearing away at the cable. So I'm going to go back to the garage and I'm going to put the proper part in that I neglected to put in because I was a lazy little fuck, and it should be fine. So really exciting. I'm going to go back to the track for extended track days in late July, early August, and I'm going to just, one of the techniques is not to downshift into second gear in a lot of the corners, but to lever in third and to just be a little bit lazier, carry momentum into the corner, and try to be a little wider, to come around some of these corners a little wider and straighten them out a bit more and carry more speed down towards the end of the straights. And so I've been like thrashing away, shifting a lot and revving the piss out of the motor, and the instructor's like, hey, you're wasting your time, you're actually going slower with all this stuff. And like other people have said, I've been too busy with my hands on the wheel moving around. He wants me to just hold him at the 9 and 3 position and not jerk the wheel around and not take my hand off the wheel so much, do so much shifting. So in some ways it's a really relief for me because I'm not a great heel and tower. I'm learning, I'm getting better at it, but less shifting is, makes me happy to hear that I don't have to do so much shifting on track. I think that ultimately shifting down into second and pulling harder out of the corners on the straightaway is going to help me, but it is a front wheel drive car and you can overpower those tires pretty easily, and this little engine of mine produces a ton of torque, so I may not need, as he said, to go there. So that's it, and I thank everybody for following the project, and we'll post more updates soon.